New York City has always been one of the focal points of the labor movement in the United States. For over a century, workers in the 5 boroughs, like the construction workers you're probably hearing, have fought to improve labor conditions for themselves, their families, their communities, and the entire American working class. Yet at first, individual workers didn't stand a chance against their powerful bosses, who offered them a simple choice: work our way or starve. The tides only began to shift when they organized collectively in labor unions, which first became a common idea during the whirlwind of the Industrial Revolution. For decades, unionizing workers faced extreme violence and had to fight tooth and nail for even the most basic concessions from capitalists. In 1909, garment workers in New York City assembled here, the Cooper Union Meeting Hall. For years, they had been abused and exploited by the untouchable corporations and wealthy owners who profited off of their miserably underpaid labor, and they had finally had enough. After hours of talk with no progress, Clara Lemlich, a young Jewish immigrant from Ukraine, demanded a chance to speak, calling for a general strike.
I have listened to all the speakers, and I have no further patience for talk. I am a working girl, one of those striking against intolerable conditions. I am tired of listening to speakers who talk in generalities. What we are here for is to decide whether or not to strike. I make a motion that we go out in a general strike.
Following her moment at Cooper Union, over 20,000 garment and factory workers, most of them Yiddish-speaking immigrants, went on strike. Their union won important victories and helped teach an entire generation that when workers fight back, they can win. Only 2 years after the uprising of the 20,000, Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire claimed the lives of 146 garment workers. Doors and windows of the factory were locked during the workday to protect against theft and unsanctioned breaks. There were no sprinklers or fire suppression in the building. The company's owners escaped the fire through the roof, leaving their workers to the flames. Unsurprisingly, the Triangle Shirtwaist Company was one of the few firms that didn't budge an inch during the strikes 2 years prior, and they were responsible for much of the violence wrought on the strikers. Following the Triangle Shirtwaist fire, public outcry saw support grow from New York's workers slowly but steadily. In the 1930s and after World War II, across the country, unions became commonplace for millions. Today, after 50 years of neoliberal rot, unions are facing their toughest fight in a long time.
From New York and Georgia to California and Illinois, the Teamsters Union says delivery drivers for Amazon and workers at some facilities have walked off the job, demanding better pay and working conditions.
Workers at several Amazon facilities across the country have gone on strike.
The Biden administration is getting more involved in the United Auto Workers' historic strike against the big 3 automakers.
But at the same time, we are seeing a record number of union drives occurring across the country following discontent over wages and conditions.
From Hollywood to hotels, workers have been walking off the job, and the demands from employees appear to be the same: better conditions, protections, and pay.
They make those millions off the backs of exploiting workers at poverty wages. That's what this is all about. That's what this fight's about.
If you're watching this, you probably already know why you want to form a union in your workplace, so we'll get right to the point. Where do you start? First things first, you can't do this alone. If you have coworkers who also believe you deserve better in the workplace, talk to them about unionization. Like any form of organizing, union organization is about building relationships and gathering people behind a common goal. In this case, the goal is achieving fair treatment in your workplace, and it starts with believing that things can be better. Do this outside of your work hours and away from your work premises as much as possible. That way you can avoid attention from your bosses, supervisors, or even other coworkers that don't share your views. The most important thing to remember at every step of this process is this: it is your legal right to form a union in your workplace. Anyone that is telling you anything different is lying to you. Most employers will try very hard to keep you and your coworkers from forming a union. This is called union busting. And they do it because collective bargaining, which is what unions do to negotiate for fair conditions, almost always gets in the way of an employer's ability to exploit workers and extract maximum profit at the expense of your well-being. When your bosses inevitably engage in union-busting tactics, remember your rights and stick together. The next step in forming your union is to tangibly gather the support of your coworkers into one unified package. You can do this by having the majority of your coworkers sign union authorization cards, or having them all sign a petition that you will then present to your boss. Now, a few bosses might voluntarily recognize the will of the worker, and if that happens, the hard part's over. But more often than not, you'll run up against considerable resistance. They may even make huge, lofty promises of improved conditions in lieu of a union. They may feign ignorance of the workers' grievances in order to frame the union effort as a silly, impetuous, irrational venture. Why, they ask, does this family at the workplace need a third party at the table? Or your boss can use a more overt filibustering technique, such as captive audience meetings, where they hold a mandatory meeting during the workday at any time for as long as they want. These meetings are designed to wear down the workers' willpower to organize, be it through lofty promises or even veiled threats, and it is completely legal. Sometimes you'll need to actually go on strike to get your boss to recognize your union as a collective bargaining agent. But industrial actions like this require a serious level of buy-in from your coworkers. If there are other unions present in your area, reach out to them. Even if they're in different lines of work, the unionization process is the same, and they will have leaders that can help you build your local union from the ground up. They can offer guidance, solidarity, and insight. Don't be afraid to ask. So, you were able to get your fellow coworkers on board with the union, and you successfully advocated for your rights. Congratulations. You're now the proud members of a brand new union. So, now what? What does a union actually do? What's stopping your boss from firing you all and replacing you with loyal workers who would never dream to stand up against the king? If you work for a national chain like McDonald's, Starbucks, Amazon, Walmart, this part can be very difficult, which is why it's extremely important that the dealings with your workplace remain transparent and public once your union is formed, and that these relationships of camaraderie you've built between your fellow coworkers and yourself continue to strengthen. The end result of this whole process is your union contract, also known as your collective bargaining agreement. That's a legally binding contract between the union and the company. With that contract signed, you're no longer just standing hand in hand with your fellow coworkers. You now have legal protection for the things you fought for and won. Luckily, these days it's tough for union-busting tactics to go unnoticed. Take modern union heroes working at an Amazon warehouse in Staten Island. At the height of the pandemic, Amazon workers held a protest against the dangerous conditions they were being forced to work in. And Amazon responded by firing Chris Smalls, one of their leaders. Warehouse workers were scared, but they used the firing as a rallying cry to accelerate their fight to improve working conditions. That fight culminated in the formation of the first Amazon labor union. Sort of like the Streisand effect. Try to make something go way too hard, or in the wrong way, it can actually become what you're known for. What happened at the Amazon Fulfillment Center in Staten Island has happened to hundreds of thousands of workplaces across the world. Those workers are part of a labor history, a history of bravery in the face of overwhelming corporate power, with the single focus of returning the fruits of your hard labor back to you. You should do what you can to join and support this rich labor tradition. Start a union today.